Hey guys, sorry it's been a while that I've posted anything, but let's continue on with the previous post. I was talking about creating a Word document which had an encoded VBS script that would create a reverse HTTPS connection back to my machine. And I was just kind of wondering what remnants we could possibly see on the machine, because Meterpreter generally just runs and resides in memory. So I decided it'd be interesting to see what we could find. So I basically ran CaptureBat and I believe I ran sysanalyzer to see what changes were happening on the operating system when I opened up the Word document and executed the macro. And so now I will quickly just go through that. Results. So we see this is Mandiant's highlighter, which is a very great tool, and I definitely want to use this a lot more because it seems like it's very powerful, and I've just kind of scraped the surface, if you will. So we see here at the beginning a bunch of Windward things that I know that this is what we need to focus on, but let's just pretend that we don't know that. So one of the things that highlighter is great for is you can actually get rid of known lines that you know of what the action is. So let's say this thing right here created a service host. This is Windows Defender doing something, and let's just say, okay, I don't really care too much about Windows Defender right now, so you can remove lines containing that selection. And it's this can slowly but surely help you start to parse out the more interesting information when you can start to take out the known good. So we have Windward here creating a lot of registry keys and changing a lot of registry values. Now the question would be, is this normal Windows Microsoft Word behavior? And the best way of figuring this out is to, in a lab environment, run the same tools that you're running before, and then run a known good, open up a known good Microsoft Word document, and see exactly what the output is for these tools. And unfortunately, yes, Windward is very noisy, and it does change a lot of things in the Windows registry. However, there were a couple things that I found that when I ran it normally without a malicious file, it did not call, but then when I ran it with a malicious file, it did call. Now, this isn't a 100% thing, but it could be something interesting to kind of take into account. So you can type in the keyword that you want to look for, and cumulative is if you want to keep previous highlights kept, or if you uncheck it, it will get rid of all the other highlights and just do for this keyword. So right now, since there's only one, we can just highlight, and we have 15 hits. Now we can, if you go to this part over here, this is kind of like a graph, and this is all kind of like the same command being run, and then this is a different command, and then all the same command being run. So it kind of shows where you have deviations from quote unquote the norm, so you can kind of look at those and see what's going on. So now if you hold the left mouse button and click and drag, it'll zoom in on a certain area. So let's just kind of go to this section right here. So we see we have Migrate Proxy, Proxy Enable, Proxy Server, and Proxy Override. Now, when I did some research on these, like Migrate Proxy had something to do with allowing or disallowing changes to proxy settings remotely. So this would be something that a Meterpreter would really be interested in doing. So, and like I said, when I ran it normally with a normal known good Microsoft Word document, it didn't call this. However, certain macros can do certain things, and they can be good macros and somehow still change these settings. So it's something that you have to kind of take into account, but it's also something to kind of look for as well. Certain things, registry settings that Word wouldn't normally open. Something to take a look at. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of things because I just kind of like to try and remove as much as possible. Google is a very loud and noisy. It's not nearly as noisy as Windows, but I just feel like I see it everywhere, and it's very frustrating to me. So let's just remove a couple more things here. So, okay, we see a bunch of, let's just do Windward.exe, and show you the cumulative effect. So cumulative, let's change the color so it's a bit easier to see. And highlight, sorry. Okay, so we have Windward Exe found 803 times. Okay, so we know that this, because this is the bad thing, and let's just say that somehow the user could tell that something interesting was going on, and therefore he quickly told us that, hey, I opened up this Word document and suddenly these things started happening, or suddenly my computer shut down, or something like that. So this was something, if I had a memory dump, I would definitely take a look at Windward and see what DLLs were called by Windward and see if there's those Meterpreter ones are in there. And once again, if Windward doesn't normally call those things, something you'd want to take a look at. Now we see LSASS here, which is definitely one of those processes that Meterpreter likes to migrate into, because you always see it running on a Windows machine, and it does also have to do with like hashes and passwords and things like that. So it's a very good thing. So I'll be a little leery about it. Let's just quickly highlight it. But you only find 16 hits of it, so probably not what we're looking for. So let's just quickly remove it. Because if we started seeing like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines, then yeah, it probably is the culprit. But that's not it. So let's just keep going. And then suddenly we see Explorer.exe calling netstat.exe. Now, I don't know, if a user called netstat.exe, it would see that from command. You would see this instead of being Explorer.exe being command.exe. So a little leery about that. And then the fact that we see it a couple more times after that. Let's highlight it. Let's not make it cumulative. Let's just focus on that now. So you have 6 items for netstat.exe. So we see, okay, so we see 2 times that netstat is processed, and we see it setting a value key, and then we see it being terminated. So that's not very normal, I don't think. So now let's focus on explorer.exe. Let's just see what's going on with that. And let's make this cumulative now. Let's make this pretty pink. I don't really like the color pink, but that's okay. Okay. We also see Explorer here calling the Migrating Proxy and the proxies services that Windward called before as well. So that's also kind of interesting. Let me make sure. So, okay, let's see what Explorer is doing. We also see it calling command.exe. Okay, I don't know if it should be doing that either. We see it calling net and net1.exe, which is used to find like net accounts, net user accounts, net admins, shares that are on your system. So that's interesting as well. And that's something I would definitely want to take a look at and ask if there's any sys administrators maybe that was doing something. But once again, does Explorer normally do those things? I don't think so. So suddenly then we see Explorer.exe creating a process for reg.exe. Now this shows you and lets you view registry settings that you have on your computer. And then suddenly we see all these writes going to this file in the user's, who's administrator, temp file. So once again, I say that the temp locations on your machine are probably the hotbed for malware activity, because it's easy for malware to write to it, and nobody usually checks it. It's usually full of internet artifacts and things like that. So this is definitely a place that I would look at, and my PowerShell script does look in here and prints out what's in there. So, and I would also recommend maybe cleaning it every once in a while. And if certain things won't be cleaned, I would try and see exactly what that is. Maybe do a hash and put that in VirusTotal just to see what's going on. It could be, and there are valid programs that keep things in the temp directory. But this isn't a normal naming convention or anything like that. So I'd be a little leery about this. So now let's see about regexe. How often is it called? Oops. And let's not make it cumulative anymore. So it seems like Explorer has passed off its functions now to reg.exe. Let's highlight. Oh, that's a lot of times. It's been seen over 54,000 times. So this could potentially be pulling registry information from the user's machine and then maybe being sucked up. So we know it was looking at network shares, network user accounts, looking to see opening up a command line, looking at the system info. So we know the attacker, if this is the attacker, has a decent amount of information. We don't know exactly what commands were run for net, but you know, you can probably take a guess. And especially if you know Meterpreter, you know what it can do. So we have one file here. Let's just scroll down for a second. Now, okay, let's say, okay, I understand that this is here now. We don't need to look at this anymore. So let's remove lines containing that selection. Okay, let me see more writes to it. And we see this is actually using CaptureBat, so let's just quickly remove CaptureBat as well. Okay, then we see regexe again, now writing to a different file. It's qdg, so now I'd be really worried. Now it's probably grabbing multiple registry hives from us, and that's usually not a good thing. Okay, so I would definitely go to this location and see if it's still there, or maybe see if we can carve out any of the data if it's there. If it, maybe it got deleted. Once again, decent amount of lines. And then we see a third registry hive potentially being grabbed. Once again, still in the temp settings. Well, this is VMware service here, I'm sorry. But yes, we see another one. So let's remove line containing that. Okay. So we see a bunch of interesting things here. And now the question is, what are those things? Now I can tell you for sure that is the registry hives because I ran the command. So that was actually the scraper command, I believe, for Metasploit, which goes and grabs system information, network information, and then grabs the registry hives and then would proceed to grab hashes if it can. So definitely not a very happy tool at all. Now let's see if we can find any other. Let's see if we can find how many. So I thought there was one more piece of data I was trying to find. So let's just highlight this thing and see if we can quickly find it. If not, I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, can I scroll down anymore? Yes, okay. So now the other files we saw, the other two registry.reg files we saw were being written to many, many times, correct? Now we see this just one being written to. Now registry hives are pretty large, and so I don't think you can write every single setting using just one of these commands. So now the question is possibly what happened. Did the user shut down the machine? Did AV trigger and then suddenly it stopped? We don't see any logs saying the AV triggered, so that's probably not it. Did the connection get dropped somehow on the attacker's side? Maybe they canceled the command, or maybe they decided that they weren't interested, or they grabbed all the information that they needed. So another interesting thing just to kind of see is something potentially happened that this guy only got written to once, and then something went wrong and he didn't grab enough. So maybe he didn't grab all the information. And I do know what happened is I actually canceled the command, so it actually it stopped here. So now, once again, I had CaptureBat running, so I can show you the deleted files. And yes, these are the 3 files. And if we if we look, size, I don't know why we have these here. If we look at these, definitely, well, let's look down here. So it's 20 megabytes, 7 kilobytes. So definitely something happened here. This one's 2 megs. So we have some different sizes here. So let's just edit this and see what it is. Yes, Windows registry address. These are definitely registry settings. So the attacker potentially got away with some registry settings. The implications of that, can be whatever you want to. You can see what programs are running on your machine. This way then they can come back with some more exploits. They can, grab the password hashes and things like that. So definitely not a good thing to grab. So now you might be saying, okay, that's well and good, but how do I know that these commands were run? Having this output is really handy, but when do you actually get this information in a perfect world? Well, technically you still can get an idea of what was going on. Let's say you didn't have this. Let's just say we have a user who calls up and says, "Hey, it was the 9th of February. I was working late. It was about 11:30, something like that. I opened up an email and suddenly my computer kind of just shut down on me about 10 minutes after that. I don't know exactly what happened. So, never mind the fact that you now also have the Word document that you could grab. But let's just pretend. So, okay." You have the machine. You could still do a memory dump. It's potentially still there, but since it's been shut down, you don't really know. So what you could do is you could go to the Prefetch directory and see what was run there. And sometimes malicious malware tends to, run executables, and therefore it'll be showing up in the Prefetch file. The Prefetch folder holds up to, I think, it's the last 128 executables that were run on the machine. So now it's different for XP than it is for Vista, but I can quickly show you where it is in Vista, and therefore Windows 7, P for Prefetch. Okay, so this is the Prefetch folder. Now let's just do list here. And this shows you all of the executables that I've run, up to 128 of them. And you're like, well, this is interesting, but this is just in, by order of name. This doesn't tell me when it was last run. So, okay, well, there's a tool for that as well. There's a tool called Prefetch Parser. Here we are, and Red Wolf Computer Forensics. And you have a GUI you can use. There's a Perl script you can use, and there's an executable you can use as well. And there's a handy README file in case you don't know how to run any of them. But the GUI is, pretty simple. You put in a case number and a description, which is a temporary database which is used to store information temporarily. And then you would point it to the output that you have. So you would basically just copy all the Prefetch files that were in the Prefetch folder that on your potential victim machine. Put that here. And then where you want to write reports to. Make sure you put it into a folder, not just your desktop, because it does have a lot of information in it. Well, that's for HTML. Probably for CSV, it probably wouldn't be the same. And then what version of Windows you're grabbing the Prefetch information from. So if I wanted to parse my own for this, I would say Vista Windows 7, but it was an XP 2003 machine. So now I already did that, and I have the output here. Like I said, so for the HTML, it does put out a lot of information. So look for it. It'll automatically open up index.html. I think it'll also open up, what's the layout? Did I? Yeah. So, okay, let's just focus on the Prefetch. So, okay, now we said the date was February 9th around 11 o'clock, right? 11:30. So very cool. So now this shows us the Prefetch file name, the actual file name, the number of times it was run, and then the last, this is it in UTC, the last time it was run. So now let's go to, well, here's reg.exe. We see that was run 4 times, and the last time it was run was 23/26/03. So that is definitely around the time frame in question. So, the user said it was around 11:30. Something weird happened, shut down. so we could say we don't know exactly what was grabbed. We can say, okay, the malicious attacker did something, grabbed information from the registry potentially. And we also see regedit.exe being called. Also another indicator of registries being changed, altered, and queried. And then let's see, we have the net ones. So we have net.exe, net1.exe, and netstat.exe. Now I ran net1 the next day on the VM, so that's my mistake. But we see net.exe and netstat being called. So like I said, netstat shows you the open connections on the machine, and net.exe is the network command that you can see network accounts and network shares and things like that. So once again, we could say, okay, don't know exactly what happened again, but based on prefetch data and asking system administrators, hey, have you guys done any maintenance on the machine, that the attacker ran at least these commands, and this way then we can infer kind of the information that they potentially received. So now we should see sysinfo right here. That was called as well by explorer.exe, and we see that was right again around that time. And we can see the DLLs that were called for. We could, dig in a little bit deeper and see exactly what file names it was. So let's just go up quickly to the, running around here, reg. So once again, this is probably the more likely scenario because we don't normally have capture bat running on a system or sysanalyzer constantly running on a system. So this is definitely something that a user can do, because like I said, Meterpreter tries to keep itself in memory. However, malware does need to get information in and out, so therefore it will leave footprints on the system. But definitely I think one of the biggest things is trying to get a memory dump as soon as possible. This way then you can use malfind and other things to find potentially malicious entry points and software that have been residing in memory. So sorry, this was probably a long one, but I hope you guys kind of learned something. I'll probably post a little bit more about what I talked about on my blog. Hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.